I have 4 cards to share with you today using Spellbinders Club Kits for May 2024. I'm using the Glimmer Hot Foil, the BetterPress, the 3D Embossing folder, and the Stencil of the Month kit. Hi everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. I'm going to start with the Glimmer Hot Foil plate, and it does have a layering stencil that goes along with that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I do want to foil this twice. It also does come with 2 sentiments and coordinating dies. So I want to foil this twice because I'm going to use this image on 2 cards. This first one here, I want to make sure I get the full flower because I am going to fussy cut this for one of my card designs. And then the other one, we will just foil 2 flowers onto one of the cards. So I'm going to use some Aura foil. That is not the one that comes in the kit, but that's just the one that I like to use. I did get that nice and hot. I pulled my platform out of the docking station. I added my shim and my plate on top and ran it through my Platinum 6 die cut machine. I do like to go slow forward and backwards. When you're done, you peel back that foil and you have this beautiful foiled flower. For this card, I'm going to foil 2 flowers. They're going to be on the top and the bottom, and it's just going to be foiling partial flowers because obviously it's too big to foil 2 of them on here. And I'll leave a little bit of open space in the center. I'm just going to trim off that excess foil. I don't need that. Do the same thing, run it through my die cut machine, and then we can pull back that foil and see our beautiful foiled image. Then I'm going to move my flower to the other side of the card, and I am taping hinges down. This is so if you don't get a great foil, you can just lay your glimmer plate back on top and in the exact same spot, and then adding some new foil, and you can kind of fix if you don't get a great foiled image. I'm going to heat that through. Now that I've run it through the machine, I can peel off the foil, and now we have our backgrounds. I am going to foil the 2 sentiments twice because I do need 3 sentiments. I'm just not sure which sentiments I want to use, and there is coordinating dies for that, so I will also be using that. This is the Stencil of the Month kit. There's a layering stencil here. You can start with either one. It doesn't really matter. I am going to start with Simon Hurley's Fake Plant ink. And then we're going to use the Fake Plant Lunar paste. Because I love that it matches. I just think it's so much fun that there is this coordinating product where you can stencil with ink and then also use paste. So I'm going to clean off that stencil, move it aside, and then I can bring in the second stencil and it will line up nicely with the other image, and we can use the Fake Plant Lunar paste. I haven't even used this one yet, but I am loving the greens lately, and something that all of these cards have in common is a good amount of green, which I think is fun. I love this kind of tropical theme. I love, and I wish I was doing the large and small die of the month for the club kits because I saw them and they are so dang cute. Oh, I love birds and I just think they're so pretty, but these kits are absolutely stunning, and I do have some birds here that we're going to be coloring from one of our kits. So I can get a nice good thin layer with this. I do love the lunar paste and the solar paste that way because it's kind of thin and you can get a really good thin layer and it dries so much quicker. So I'm going to peel this back and I will wash that off with some warm water, but look at this background using the same color of ink and lunar paste. Okay, let's use the coordinating stencil for these foiled flowers. There's 2 stencils for this, and it's a layering stencil. And it doesn't matter which order you stencil these in. These are not numbered. I am going to use Simon Hurley's Rosy Cheeks and Prom Queen ink. I'm going to start with Rosy Cheeks. It is a lighter pink, and I'm just going to lightly ink blend the whole flower here. And then I can come back in using the Prom Queen and add some darker details at the base of my flower petals. And I am using smaller blender brushes. I usually like to use that, especially when I'm stenciling, where I can add a little bit more detail. It's easier to me to do it that way. And so you can see how pretty this is turning out. And again, this one I am going to fussy cut for another card design. I didn't realize that my stencil wasn't lined up perfectly, so I'm going to come back in with that Rosy Cheeks and just lightly fix the areas that did not get stenciled. Here is that second stencil. I'm going to do the same thing using the Rosy Cheeks and then bringing in the Prom Queen. And this also has the stencil for the stem, and I'm going to be using the fake plant ink for that. Here is that Prom Queen, adding some of those dark areas, and then we have this just beautiful, beautiful flower. Ooh, look at how pretty that is. Let's do our little stem here real quick. We can get that ink blended, and then we can put this aside and work on our next card combination. So here is that foiled one with the two flowers. I am going to be using, which colors did I use here? Guppy, and I think it was Prom Queen. So we'll see here in a minute. So this is kind of a orangey color, a yellowy orange color. This first flower, I am going to just lightly ink blend the whole thing yellow. And I believe I used Prom Queen, but we'll see here in a minute. And then I will come in with Prom Queen, and at the base of the flowers add this darker color, and it's kind of gives you this fun pinky corally color once it's all dry together, and I think it's so stunning. The other flower, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm just going to use this same first stencil for both flowers, and then I will come back in with the second stencil. So what I'm going to do different here is start with Prom Queen at the tips of the stencil, and then come in with the Guppy at the base of the stencil, not blending the colors on top of each other, but letting them blend a little bit where they meet. So you have two different kinds of flowers here. You have one that's a little more corally orange, and then one that has more pink. So here is that second stencil. I'm going to do the same thing, adding that Prom Queen. Sorry about my head being in the way. Adding that Prom Queen ink at the top, and then the Guppy at the bottom. I love the names of inks that everyone does, and Simon Hurley really has some cute names. So let's get that ink blending in. And I am ink blending over foil, so I want to make sure that my brushes are soft, number one, because I don't want to accidentally like flake off some of my foil. And I am ink blending with a lighter hand, lighter than I probably normally would, because I just want to make sure I don't cause any damage to that foiled area. And when I'm taping things down, I'm also making sure to not tape where there is foil, because the tape could also pull that up. So let's do that other flower where you start with the Guppy over the whole petals, and then come in with the Prom Queen at the base, and then that gives us that kind of corally pink color. And then this flower is done. I'm kind of filling in some of the areas that I missed because apparently I wasn't lining things up. Here is the 3D embossing folder, and it's stunning with these big, beautiful, I think these are called monsteras or something like that, big leaves, and I just think they're stunning. And I am using a green cardstock, a really deep green cardstock for this. Now on this, we are going to use solar paste. So solar paste is different than lunar paste. They look white, but they have different tints to it. So this one's called Golden Hour, so it has a little bit of gold, and I'm gonna just use my finger and lightly paint and highlight these embossed images with the solar paste. And so the flowers will all be in Golden Hour. And then the leaves are going to be in Crocodile Tears. So that does have a green hue to it, so you can see the difference here. So even though the pastes look a little bit white, they do have a color to them. And I just love how it is making these 3D images pop off the background. I'm dipping my finger in the paste and I'm tapping a lot of the excess off onto my work surface. I would rather have to build than take off and have too much because I don't want to like have clumps of it and things like that. So I am doing it that way. But did you see that shimmer and shine? It looks so pretty. I am loving how these cards are turning out. So let's finish up this last leaf here and then we can set this aside to dry. That is so pretty. Okay, let's do our BetterPress here, and I'm using the Porcelain cotton cardstock for this. We have the plate. I will be using Thunder ink, which is a gray, and then I'm going to be using leaf green. These are all BetterPress inks for the sentiment that goes inside. I just want to make sure this is lined up straight. I did tape down my cardstock to the top of the BetterPress platform. Really want to make sure everything is nice and straight, which I think for the most part I accomplished. I'm so glad there's a grid on the background. It makes it so much easier. So here's that thunder. That's what I'm going to ink up the whole floral and bird image. And then, like I said, I'll use a leaf for the sentiment. Making sure I get everything inked up so nicely. And I do notice like the sentiments, when you ink those up, those do tend to move around a little bit on this magnetic plate, but it's easy to just slide that back in place without really taking any of the ink off. So here's that leaf ink. And then this will also run through my Platinum 6 die cut machine. You just take out all of your other plates. You pop this top plate on. I realized I needed to move my card panel there. And then you can just run this through. And I just run this through once, which seems to work. And then you have this beautiful imprinted image. I am going to be using some Karen markers to color this. So these are like watercolor markers. And I'm using the blender pen that comes with the Karen markers to blend this out. So I'm kind of just using one color and then blending it out with the marker. Now, this is not watercolor paper. It does blend well, but if you overdo, you're gonna have you're gonna rough up your paper a little bit. It's gonna be peeling just a tad bit. So just be careful of that, but they really did work nicely on here. It did leave some really dark shadows, which I was super happy about. I'm using, you can see on the caps what colors I'm using. This is the blender pen. But I love this green. I just love this background. Now the birds on here are cockatoos, but I'm not going to color them like cockatoos. They usually tend to be white with like a yellow crest or a white crest. I know there's some other colored ones too, but the more common ones that you see. But I'm going to color this differently. I just really wanted this to have a lot of color. And if I didn't color the birds, then it would be a lot of white space that I didn't want. I'm using 2 different colors of greens for my flowers. And as you can see, I'm just kind of not fully outlining everything, just some of it, just kind of where it makes sense to add a darker area. But I mean, you know, everyone colors things differently and I'm not an expert. So this is just how I color things. We've got this orange for their cute beaks. I know we had contemplated on getting a cockatoo because they're so funny and they've got funny, great little personalities, but they are yellers and screamers. And I'm just like, I don't think I can handle that. So we did not get one. So I just looked up online different colors of parrots, and there was a parrot that had yellow and orange and green. And so that's what I went with here. So that way this background is beautifully colored. So he has a yellow head, a yellow and orange body. I am using this yellow right now to blend into that orange a little bit, and then I'm wiping that excess orange that gathered on my marker off on a paper towel, and then I'm coming in here with the blender pen and just kind of blending out. So it kind of gets a little bit of a better blend without overworking the cardstock. I think on the second bird on his belly, I did kind of overwork the cardstock a little bit, but it still looked fine. I'm going to add some green here at the bottom, that lighter bright green, and blend it into that orange. I think that's really pretty. The inside of his feathers will be yellow and the tips will be green. Again, that blender pen to blend that out. So you're not going to get as good of a blend. The color's not going to go as far on this cardstock compared to if I was using like a watercolor cardstock, then it would just move kind of all over the place. This one, it doesn't work like that, but it still blends nicely, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But you could use any, color medium that you want, but anything that's going to take blending, like alcohol markers and stuff like that, are just not going to blend quite the same. Let's work on this next bird. Let's start on the chest, the yellow on the head, blending that yellow marker with that orange one. And then I will come in with that blender pen, blend out his head a little bit, leaving some lighter areas, having some darker. But aren't they cute? They're so fun. This is the area that I was just kind of over blending a little bit down there on that lighter area. So that is something to just be careful of. A little bit of yellow at the top of his feathers, and then we will do the green at the bottom. I do also come in with a very light gray and just outline, not the whole, all of the images, just some of the areas to give a little bit of a shadow, and it just, especially from kind of further away, it just makes it pop off the background, which is what I was hoping for. It gives it a little bit of a 3D effect. I think you might notice it the most kind of going around this bird here, just in some of the areas. And then once that's done, we can start working on finishing up some of these other cards. We had to let some things dry, so you just kind of work through the process, and it does probably kind of seem like I'm all over the place, but I promise I'm not. We just had to let things dry. Okay, let's go back to using this stencil on those two flowers. Nothing is masked off. I am just being careful to ink blend right up to the flowers. I think a couple of the flowers I ink blended over a little bit. It doesn't even matter. You don't even really notice it. But adding this stencil on the background, it just adds a little something extra. I actually flipped over the stencil, so now the flowers are kind of facing the other way. And I am using fake plant for both layers of stenciling. But I feel like this added a little something. I was kind of debating if I wanted to stencil or not. Here are those foiled sentiments that we need, or excuse me, that we foiled and we do need. I am going to die cut those with the coordinating dies. And then we will have sentiments for 3 of our cards because our 4th one already has a sentiment. So for this card, I do have a small gold mirror matte behind it. All of these will be adhered to a white A2 size card base. And then this sentiment says, sending best wishes. I'm going to pop it up with some foam adhesive and put it down on that lower left side. Then we have our embossed background. That's also going to have a mirror matte. I did trim that down quite a bit smaller than an A2 size. I did want a really good, nice white matte around that because it is so much green. And this sentiment also says, sending best wishes. I'm going to pop that right there. Then we have this one. This already has a sentiment on it. I'm just adhering it. It is trimmed down a little bit smaller than A2 size. I'm just adhering that directly to the card base. And then here's that big flower that we foiled. I did fussy cut that out, and I want this popped up on that stenciled with ink and lunar paste background. And this pink flower is just going to pop against all of that green, and I think it's stunning. And that sentiment says, thinking of you. So we can place that down there with some foam adhesive. And then I want to finish off, of course, with some gold foil confetti because I love it. But obviously you could use any confetti that you want, but as you can tell, I love pops of gold everywhere on everything. Makes me very, very happy. So I'm going to get a few of these, put these in place. This is the Pick Pro tool from scrapbook.com, and I cannot tell you guys how much I love this thing. So you have your little end here that's sticky. It's going to grab your sequence, even small paper, things like that. And then the other end has your little poiky tool. So it's pointy, kind of like the end of your tool-in-one from Spellbinders. What's nice about this, because I love my tool-in-one, But so what's nice about this, it's just already in your hand. So you just flip it around if you have to use that other pointy end. So super, super handy dandy. And I just have to talk about it because I love it so much. So let's add a few to that background. I love that leaf background. I think it's just so pretty. This one's so colorful. I love all of these cards. I really, really love how all of these cards turned out. But I love how colorful this one is. So let's get a few scattered around there. And then we just have one more card. And then we can take a look at these up close and personal. Put a few at the top, a few towards the bottom. Normally I tend to center my sequence around my sentiment, but this I kind of decided to go around the flower more than the sentiment. Look at that solar paste on there. It's so pretty and makes that 3D embossing folder pop. Then we have our BetterPress card here. I just think it's so stunning with all of that detailed image. We have our foil card here with our stenciled background with that Lunar paste. And then we have our other foiled card with just the stenciled background. Thanks so much, you guys, for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed these projects. I hope that you feel inspired, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.